So this is what we start with. Blank piece of paper, endless ideas, endless possibilities. So the problem is, we start with this. We need to sit down with the client and talk to them. How do we go from this to this, something that's cool and sexy? What's kind of a little bit of that process? What's involved in it? And you may not want cool and sexy in your project. Maybe your target audience is a little bit different than, you know, a Dave & Buster's or some of our other clients. But that's one of the first things that we really need to know is, what is your target audience? Is it the millennials? It's that 21 to 35-year-old age range. Disposable income, families with young kids. I heard a term last night during dinner, centennials. I guess those are the kids born after the year 2000. Is that the market, the younger kids? And so just us having an understanding of who your target audience is really helps us kind of focus in or zero in on partly what that design is going to look like and what your brand image is going to speak to. Programming, obviously such an important element. I think Jeff just touched on it a little bit on this previous talk where he moved his kitchen to get more efficient. But sitting down and talking through programming elements. And there's not always hard and fast rules with what we do with programming. We have some clients for the redemption games. They really like to do that up front, right when you walk in the door. Gets people's kind of juices flowing when they see the games. They get excited about wanting to get in the games area and kind of play. So when they see that redemption counter when they walk in, it really gets them going. Some of our clients, they like the redemption area in the back of the store. Why? They want people to kind of have a journey through the space. They want them to see everything that's in there to make their way all the way back there so they get a feel for what's going on the entire property. One of our projects, you may have been to this, Top Golf. We've been working with them for a few years. And so when you talk about programming, some of the challenges with a facility like this, you have 65,000 square feet of floor area. So what's going to be the most efficient way to put that on a piece of land? Obviously, what we do here is, stacking 3 floors. So you get about 22,000 square feet per floor. We have people come in on the middle level. And the reason we do that is there's a little bit of a psychological barrier with people coming in and having to go up 2 levels. But when you come in that mid-level and you just have to go up 1 level or down 1 level, it's just a little bit psychologically easier for people. The other thing is you look at how far those tee boxes extend around here. We had to centralize the kitchen because they were having problems in previous stores where they couldn't get the food from the kitchen to the farthest tee box without it getting cold. And so they had customer complaints about that. So centralizing the kitchen to make sure that you can serve all your patrons, your clients in the way that you need to in terms of your customer service and how you present yourself. The other thing, when you have a 22,000 square foot floor plan, so how do you make that a little bit more of an intimate experience for your guests, for your patrons? So one of the things we've been doing in terms of elevating that experience, a lot of places are going to a little bit softer, kind of overstuffed, loungy, more furniture, just for guest comfort. No plastic benches in here. Kind of working with the games and the lounge area, working together so there's kind of a whole group experience going on there. We'll maybe lower the ceilings to compress the area to give a little bit more of an intimate feeling in the space. And then all this has to be wrapped up in a pretty package. And that pretty package has to be durable on the exterior. We do a lot of projects in the south. You're talking about the salt air, you're talking about humidity, you're talking about high heat. You get up in the north, you got the extremes of weather that work on materials, expansion, contraction. So all that has to be durable on the outside. And that exterior has to speak to your brand image. What image do you want to convey to the guest before they even walk in the door? And you want that image to be the same outside as it is when you walk inside. You want a consistent brand message. So one of the ways we talk about design with our clients, as we're going through some of the programming, laying out the floor plan, we'll create what we call concept or mood boards. This isn't an example of a mood board that's a little bit more abstract than maybe what we normally do. But this project, our challenge was we had a site that was a lot of exposed concrete inside. We had concrete columns, concrete deck above, concrete floor below. But we also had a limited budget. And so the idea was, how can we utilize concrete as a finished surface instead of having to cover every square inch with either tile or wood or some other material? So the concept board that we presented, gave it a name, Urban Decay Pop-Up. You could see there's a lot of grays in there, kind of warmer tone grays, but we have some pops of color. We have some painted concrete shown there. And those are essentially some of the elements that we used. And we came up with a successful design in a really responsible budget that worked for the client. And it was all because of how the space, in a sense, spoke to us when we got it. Some of our concept boards are much more simple. It's really just about some ideas about what we see potentially, maybe some elements in your space that kind of shape your space and give you that aesthetic cue or design guidelines. So there's a lot of things out there that are looking to eat up your revenue generating square footage as well as your budgets. So what are some of those things that we deal with? A lot of it has to do with building codes and zoning. For example, the games area in a lot of the centers that we do. There's nothing in the building code that really tells a code official how to calculate the allowable occupant load in the games area. And so that challenge is really left up to the building department to figure out how they want to calculate it themselves. So we're really at their kind of will. And they usually calculate it two ways. They usually calculate gross square footage, including your game footprint, or net square footage minus your game footprint. And it may not sound like it's that big of a deal in terms of the difference, but the difference can add 4 or 5 plumbing fixtures into your restrooms because of how that occupant load is calculated. So it's taking up revenue generating square footage with additional toilets, whatever you need. It's also costing you more, eating into your budget because of what fixtures cost, what it costs to outfit a toilet room. And when we talk about restrooms especially, with the ADA compliant stalls, ambulatory stalls that are needed at some point, family restrooms, potty parity laws, the restrooms can get huge in some of the facilities that we do. So that's always kind of a challenge as well. Architectural review boards and zoning boards. So we did a Dave & Buster's project on the East Coast, and the development there was next to a residential neighborhood, but we were taking over a abandoned Circuit City, had been closed down for 2 to 3 years. We thought, what can go wrong with this? So we get to the first zoning board hearing, and boy, the neighborhood was out in force. People didn't know Dave & Buster's. They were concerned about a lot of different things. And the zoning board was inclined to be on the side of the residential neighbors. They were concerned about traffic and everything else. It took us 8 months to get through the zoning process here, coming back numerous times with more information each time. And eventually, people got comfortable with what we were doing. They had a chance for the zoning board members to see another Dave & Buster's in another location and see how it operated, talk to some of the people and some of the town officials there and see how well it kind of fit in. After they open, no problems whatsoever, and they've been a good neighbor ever since. So sometimes it's just a matter of kind of having that perseverance to convince local officials, the local community, that what you're doing is a good thing. So we have some programming elements. We have some concept ideas in terms of what we're doing with the design. So in terms of some of the design trends that we're seeing, things that we're doing and maybe we're not doing, first I wanted to start with some of the things that are out. And when I say out, it's not that these things are not nice looking anymore. It's more of the fact that they're overused. For one example, Edison lamps in light fixtures, the clear glass bulbs, the filaments. It's come so full circle now that we have an LED manufacturer that is actually making an LED light to have a filament glow in this kind of lamp. At that point, it's time to start moving on to maybe different types of fixtures. Reclaim wood. There's ways to get sustainable, responsible forested wood from mill houses that doesn't require you to tear down a 200-year-old barn. So with that, I think people are getting a little bit away from that. It's a little bit of a heavy-handed look. Raw exposed board form concrete. That's pretty common nowadays as well, too. And so try to get away from this a little bit more as well. We're seeing that done in a lot of places. One of the things we are seeing, big graphic murals. And murals are a really economical way to add a lot of color impact to your space, focal point. This project here, Dirty Nellies in Palatine, you can see that the background is pretty simple in color, where the music stage, everything's a little bit dark colored. We have some blacks with the furniture, some grays and things like that. But when the stage isn't being used, the owner wanted something that was impactful on the wall. And so we actually designed these murals for him. Took them to a graphics company who enlarged them, sharpened them up a little bit, and then produced them and installed. This is Take 5 Lounge in Madison, Wisconsin for Marcus Theaters. And one of the other things is just kind of repurposing underutilized spaces that you have on your property. They realized that they could still kind of be efficient with running their theaters. They were kind of underutilized, so they took one of the theaters on this property, turned it into a lounge, dining room. And the challenge with this, obviously, is that you got a lot of people showing up beforehand that want to eat before they go into a movie. A lot of people come out and maybe want to grab something to eat and a drink when they come out. So we had to keep the menu a little bit more limited, just to be able to make sure that the customer had a great guest experience when they came on the property. But now they're on the property earlier before the movie, and they're staying later after, so you're capturing more of those dollars. One of the terms that I don't know if you've heard, but is starting to be common in our industry, is called color blocking. And when we have a space like this where you have a little bit of plain brick in the background, Chicago brick, you have, again, the dark metals, we use color, pops of solid color, that kind of make a visual impact for you to kind of liven up the space a little bit. In this project, the banquette seating, we did color blocking on the fabric to add some life to that, and even picked a pane out of the window glass behind there and gave that a little color pop as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be done in fabrics. It can be done in other ways, but color blocking is something that we use to kind of liven up spaces in a simple way and add some color. Lighting. Nowadays, we couldn't do the lighting that we do in our projects without LED because of the energy codes going on nowadays. There's no way we can light a lot of our spaces without LED lighting and meet the energy requirements. So what the opportunity that LED also gives us is to add some color through lighting. It's an efficient way to add color, and you can get a lot of different colors with LED lighting. And so we start utilizing that to, again, add a little bit of pop of color, add a little bit of difference, add some interest. A couple of the other things, that we're seeing, we have clients that want what's called an Instagrammable moment. You know, social media is such an important thing nowadays, and as we talked about, the millennials are always on their phones as well as the younger kids. But there's some kind of element in the space, whether it's three-dimensional, two-dimensional on a wall, but it has some kind of interactivity with the people, the patrons that are customers that are using your place. And they love it. Something a little bit unusual that they'll snap a photo, post it on Instagram, post it to Facebook. And so it gives you a little bit of marketing, free marketing for your project, and generates a little bit of buzz and interest. In addition, as you guys all know, technology is such an important game changer. We're seeing a lot more of simple games being elevated through technology, whether it's Topgolf, ping pong, darts, using microchips in those in order to kind of create games, and then taking that and putting that in an environment that elevates the customer experience. We're working on a couple of projects in downtown Chicago now between ping pong and darts. Just that whole kind of group gathering area that's focusing on corporate parties as well as big groups of people.